and welcome to Business in the New Normal. I'm Joseph Rosales, and this is my co-host, Ike Devji. Ike, how are you today?
Good, thank you. Good to be with you again.
Good. Well, thank you. It's a cold, blustery day here in Arizona. We're not used to that.
60
but
degrees and we're all wearing coats.
I know, right? The focus of our podcast every week is to provide business owners, leaders, and managers with objective and balanced information that will help them not just survive, but thrive in this changing and dynamic environment that we find ourselves all working in. My co-host Ike is an experienced asset protection attorney and specializes in helping protect the wealth of high net individuals and businesses. I'm the leader of a firm that helps businesses to optimize the performance of their people and therefore their business. So I wanted to get right to our guest this morning, and she is Karen Nowicki. And if you don't mind, Karen, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you. I appreciate you having me today.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Absolutely. I'm going to read Karen's short bio here, and I'm going to read it because it's so impressive. And I've met Karen originally as a guest on her radio show, and we've since developed a nice friendship and supported each other in a lot of different ways. So Karen, besides being a successful business owner, author, and speaker, is also the creator of Deep Impact Leadership and SoulMarks Coaching. She's a two-time recipient of the prestigious National Choice Award for her children's book and personal development retreat. She's the proud mother of three children, 26, 24, and 13, which the 13-year-old just got a new phone, right? And she says, above everything else, being a mother is her greatest accomplishment in life. As an impeccably trained integrative coach professional, which I'm sure we'll hear more about what that means, through the Integrative Coaching Institute at John F. Kennedy University, she's also a certified Tao Healing guide and a Trauma Integration Practitioner. She's had the distinct honor and pleasure of mentoring over 200 coaches and people worldwide. In addition to working with private coaching clients, she owns and operates Phoenix Business RadioX. The Business RadioX Network amplifies the voice of businesses, serving not just Fortune 500, but Fortune 5,000 companies. Business RadioX helps businesses and professional associations get the word out about the important work they're doing to serve their market, profession, and community. Karen, welcome to the program.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here, and it's kind of fun to be sitting on this end of the microphone and on the receiving end of questions instead of shooting them off myself.
All right. Well, that's excellent. It's interesting because in our warm up here, we were talking about all the crazy things that are going on around us and especially some of the issues with cybersecurity. And I was just sharing with my guest and my co-host here that my wife was hacked and scammed last week. I was tried to scam yesterday by somebody who said they were from Social Security, and Ike's had his go arounds with it. And you see a lot of things, Ike, right, with clients that are happening all the time, right?
Yes. We've had a bunch of clients targeted for false unemployment benefits being claimed in their name, identity theft, you name it, all of it. In this time of year, combine a busy time of year where we all have more transactions than usual on our credit cards and from our bank accounts and with checks that we're writing. The opportunity is the greatest for the criminals who do this.
Yeah, well, opportunist. And I guess the message here for everybody out there is please watch your credit cards, watch your text, watch your emails. We know that it happens all the time. It's happening more with the economy continuing to spiral for many people, with people being out of work, with people being food challenged, with all the things that some of us don't experience, but others do a lot. Crime continues to go up. And again, with all the turmoil and all the conflict and all the confusion and all the distraction, that's when criminals take advantage of people. So please, please, please watch your information, watch your identity. So, that's just a message from us. So Karen, I think I'd like to open this up and just ask you a question. How does an elementary school teacher, an assistant principal, move from that space to doing what you're doing now? I'm sure it's an amazing story. Can you share that with us?
Yes. I was a third grade teacher after graduating NAU many, many, many years ago. We won't even say how many years ago. and quickly moved into an assistant principal role because at the time, Kyrene School District was opening up a business school partnership with Intel right here in Chandler. And that's when I got bit by the business bug. I had always thought I'd be a teacher, really didn't even know that I was going to move into administration. But my leadership skills and my ability to connect with people of all ages and get to the heart of situations strategically as well as emotionally led me to this position. And in 2 summers, working in paid internships with Intel as we were planning this school partnership, the first of its kind in the country, I switched my major from educational leadership, my master's, to organizational management because I thought, there might be a time that I'm going to step away from education and have a different reach to help people. And within about 6 months to a year of getting my master's, I made the switch and opened up my own coaching practice.
So your clients and your focus is really tailored to executive leaders and business owners, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So when I first started coaching, it was more, I would call it life coaching. And I almost hate that term now because it's so overused and anyone can hang a shingle on the door calling themselves a life coach without any real school or oomph behind it. My certificate is from John F. Kennedy University in the Integrative Coaching department. And I was there for 3 years going through my practicum, getting certified. And so when I first started after I left schools, who I knew were parents and just general lay people. But the more that people began to refer me to others, the more professional clients started to come my way, and they were the harder nuts to crack. When I started working with attorneys, no offense, politicians and doctors, folks who really are just the smartest of the smart, they also spend most of their time up here in their head. And the work that I do helps people get aligned, mind, body, spirit. And I found that they were referring me less, even though they were still the ones texting me saying, I finally had that conversation, or I finally paid off that debt, or I let go of that employee, whatever those things, I stepped out of the situation that I was out of integrity with in my marriage, those sorts of things that they very private conversations, but helping them clean up the things in their life that were holding them back. I found that they were always, I was the champion. I was the little Jiminy Cricket on their shoulder, but they weren't referring me like everybody else did, which is what led me to open Business RadioX.
Interesting. Ike?
Yeah. So just to kind of finish that story, I went to my coach and said, here's what's happening. I love working with more highly visible people, folks who have a large constituency, folks who really make it a positive impact in our world. And they're not referring me like, general lay people. And that's when she recommended I started a podcast. And I thought, oh, I don't want to do a podcast. I don't even really listen to them. It felt like a bunch of people just talking about themselves and how smart they all are all the time. And I didn't want to be part of that. And I found Business RadioX that's been around now for 13 years. And they were doing exactly what you and Ike are doing, shining the spotlight on other individuals, still raising the vibration of your visibility, of course, as hosts, but giving other people the opportunity to tell their success stories. And I thought this is a great way for me to meet more professionals that I'd love to work with. So it's an additional wreath on my door, and it has been for 3 years.
Awesome. So what kind of professional organizations do you work with?
So we have a handful of business owners as well as professional organizations that hire me to create their podcast and their radio show. So Local First Arizona is one of our partners. Marketers is a partner. Arizona Technology Council, Steve Zylstra and I, the founder and CEO, co-host his show together. Conscious Capitalism of Arizona, SciTech Institute. Those are all organizations that are heavily involved with their own radio show and podcast. And I'm happy to be their producer and their partner as they put themselves out in the world.
A lot of businesses have great ideas. A lot of business owners and leaders and builders have great ideas, but that doesn't always translate to how those ideas are communicated, right? I know a lot of brilliant people who the general public is unaware of because they don't talk about themselves, or maybe they just don't effectively talk about themselves. Are you helping these folks not just produce the content, but their messaging as well, as in terms of, are you helping these folks figure out what they should be letting others know? Does that question make sense the way I'm asking it?
It
And I'm
makes
talking about the
great
messaging
sense.
itself, not just the delivery.
Yeah, and I don't. That I really leave that to the folks who are in branding and marketing. I don't have a marketing or branding background. I help people with the art of the connected conversation. So if I notice that they're having difficulty with their messaging, I can refer them to people in my sphere of influence. But what I really do is help people settle into the idea that when they're here in the studio and they're hosting their own show, much again like the two of you are doing, if they can be in a place of listening, truly listening, and shine the spotlight in somebody else's direction, and having selected the right professional guest that they want to grow with, either somebody they want to do business with or a client they want to thank, then that's where that reciprocity and that synergy takes off because of this rich, exchange of conversation while we're on air. That's really where the sweet spot is for me. I hope that answers your question.
It does. It does. It's helpful. And, it's so important, especially right now where we have so much economic duress in many different sectors of the economy. Joseph and I have talked to many of our guests. One of our recurring themes has been, how do we continue to operate businesses where there's a lack of consumer confidence, where people are literally to come in? How are you communicating what you're doing to keep them safe? So all of these things are more important than ever before. I mean, Joseph and I have talked many times, and we've said, you can be as cute and smart as you want at home by yourself. If nobody knows about it, it's not helping you or them. And I think that business messaging and getting out what you do, how you do it, and why it has value is more important than ever when we have a period of economic duress where people need to know what you're doing, and you need to get the message out. So I think it's great you're doing that. You mentioned one of the organizations that Joseph asked you about. You mentioned the Conscious Capitalist organization, and I know that's part of your business philosophy as well. What are some of the guiding principles of that, and why are they important? What does that mean? I think it means different things to different people. We generally know that it means trying to do good, but I know in a business context, it's much than that.
Yeah, well, you're right. We say kind of the slogan with conscious capitalism is capitalism as a force for good. So many people over the years have given capitalism and the idea of business ownership and enterprise a bad rap, right? as if somehow, whether a small, medium, or large size business. And we have some examples in our lifetime of corporations who have done things to harm others, right? Whether it's in their lack of concern for the earth or a community or the air or overcharging prices, those sorts of things. So conscious capitalism, while those two words, you wouldn't normally think they would fit together, we are simply an organization worldwide as a force for good. And the four guiding principles, to answer your question specifically, are higher purpose. So creating a business and or an organization that serves a higher purpose. Stakeholder orientation, making sure that stakeholders are all considered when decisions are made. So be it clients or customers, vendors, employees, and the community at large, how can we do our business and serve our clients and customers and make sure that everybody is considered in those decisions? Conscious leadership is another tenet or a guiding principle. And then, of course, conscious culture. And this is an organization that I was not familiar with until I landed here at Max 6, where the studio is housed in Tempe, Arizona. But to your point, Ike, being a teacher and just growing up with the morals and values that I've had my whole life, when they started speaking the language of conscious capitalism, I'm like, it's a no-brainer. It just makes sense to me. But not everybody has that thinking. So this is what's so neat about the organization, bringing like-minded people together so that they can further support each other, make those introductions that are helpful, and of course, just serve a higher purpose and celebrate sustainability as well.
I love the specificity of those four different tenets of conscious capitalism, if you will, and including, and you and I say apparently some of the same things in slightly different ways with the same meaning, though. So one of the things that we try to tell people is that doing the right thing is good business.
Right.
It's not just morally right, or whatever phrase what you want to assign to that, but it is good business. It is best practice to follow the rules, to follow the law, to be compliant with the standards of your industry. In fact, when I talk about asset protection, the first layer of asset protection that I try and teach clients is clean living. Let's not do things that create conflict or get us sued in the first place because they are immoral, illegal, legally actionable, whatever it is. Let's not do that. And it sounds like you've built a lot of those same things into how you are advising these folks. So that's great.
Yeah, and the other piece of this, the last thing perhaps I'll say, unless you have more questions around conscious capitalism, is that it is good business to do the right things. And we're looking to eradicate abject poverty. We want to teach others to be enterprising, right? So again, doing the work in other countries or even within the United States in areas that are, filled with poverty, teaching them to garden and to sell their goods and to sell their wares and how to save money, those kinds of things. It's this idea that if we do well, we want to share it with others and help them do as well. So there's plenty of business to go around. There's plenty of money to go around if we look at it through that lens.
Excellent.
I love that mindset, and really, in my, I think you know about my most recent book, The Leader of You. We talk about mindset a lot, and mindset is built on perception and perspective. Eventually evolves into mindset, and mindset is deep. And the whole idea of conscious capitalism and it being not just a mindset, but the actions that go around it, that you're helping, you're reaching out, you're being proactive about helping other people to achieve more in their life financially and in their business. But it starts in here. It starts with doing the right things, seeing the right things, seeing things, opportunities in this pandemic that we all are still trying to come out of. We've seen some amazing transformations of businesses where people have pivoted and are way more successful now than they were before the pandemic. And likewise, we've seen other people that just collapsed because they didn't have the right thought process or mindset. They didn't collaborate with others. They didn't reach out. So, we're very much about collaboration. And I love that you said that earlier. So you said something too, Karen, that about these clients that you work with, that they need to see things differently. And sometimes they have trauma, and sometimes they have situations that have evolved, sometimes by their own doing, sometimes not. And so, you said something in another conversation we had about a trauma-informed workplace. Can you share a little bit about that, please?
Sure. So a trauma-informed workplace. Well, first of all, let me define trauma.
Please, yeah.
I think that's important because it's a term that gets thrown around a lot. First of all, it's relative. It's anything that happens to us at any time in our life, or a series of traumatic experiences where the shock of that experience, maybe a car accident, let's take that as an example. The shock of that experience actually lands and lives in our body. And our mind in that moment of impact doesn't know how to process what happens. It's the fight or flight mentality. So the way we normally process things goes out the window, and we create these adaptations, these way of functioning after that traumatic experience. And if we don't get the shock out of our physical body through, a variety of methods and experiences, and make peace and heal that trauma informs every decision going forward, and often is triggered by other things. So when we talk about PTSD, we talk about sexual abuse, physical abuse. Those are, the extreme examples we would normally think about with trauma, but it's relative. So even somebody, let's say a 28-year-old man who lands at a job some great enterprise. It's the first opportunity for him to step into management and leadership. And he's really known for some great things that he does with his customers. Now they want him to manage and lead a team. And if he has a trigger, let's say with an experience from fifth grade when he walked into the classroom and his teacher embarrassed him in front of his classmates, that could be just as traumatic. That shock could live in his body just as much because he made a decision about himself. He adapted himself at that time, as a fifth grader, that now all these years later, when he's ready to step into the greatest piece of his success, he might be stumped and stuck and not even relate it back to this incident that hurt him so deeply when he was a very young boy. So the work that I do as a trauma guide is to help people integrate that trauma, release the shock from their body, and create a new relationship with it so that it informs their highest and best instead of keeps them stuck in the past. So when you talk about mindset, Joseph, and the work that you do, obviously that's so needed. We all need guides and mentors and coaches to help us to get to the next level in whatever we're working on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we can only go so far if we haven't dealt with the trauma. So anytime somebody is working with an individual and they notice that they're stuck and they can't figure out why, a trauma guide would be a great person to refer them to help release that, heal it, so that then they can stand in the presence of who they are, both in their chronological age as well as their emotional age. Those ages have to match.
So interesting, and thank you for sharing more of that detail, because so many people think, "Oh, trauma. I don't have trauma in my life." Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. Uh, in so many different areas, and sometimes it's a little tiny thing that can keep you from moving forward or seeing something a certain way that allows you to move forward. Um, the whole idea of perspective and is influenced greatly by things that happened in the past. My wife is deathly afraid of needles. I had to go with her last week. She needed to get her blood drawn for some normal, blood test stuff. I had to go with her and hold her hand because she's so deathly afraid of needles. Come to find out, she had a spinal tap when she was young. And that's what, when she was a young child, they used to have to chase her around the doctor's office to give her a vaccine. And now she's a mature woman now, and that still has that impact on her. But she didn't know why until her mother told her, yeah, when you were little, you used to. And she, oh my gosh, really? Now it started to unfold it a little bit. Now she's starting, all right, I get why I feel that way. And now it's less of a trauma to her because she's uncovered it. So and this happens in so many different areas with so many different people, I'm sure.
It's amazing. So for some of the more severe traumas, childhood traumas, especially when it's repeated abuse, again, folks, you and I, all three of us know who are very successful and have great families. They've buried those experiences so deep into their psyche often that when I start to work with them, they don't even remember.
Yeah.
And yet that shock lives in their body until they can release it, and it creates disease, which we all know then becomes disease, right?
Wow.
And I forgot to answer your original question, Joseph, around trauma-informed workplaces. Part of my mission here at Phoenix Business Radio X and through Deep Impact Leadership is to help executive leaders and business owners come to understand the impact that trauma has on us, so that when they themselves are struggling or they have anybody that is a stakeholder that they're responsible for in their relationship with, they can bring more compassion, more respect, more patience to that situation instead of what we used to do, just, fire, step away, end relationships with. We can help each other heal by being more compassionate and getting people the right help that they need.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting, and then we'll move on to the final piece here, but it's something we call blind spots.
Yep.
People don't even know they have them. We have them in our cars. We have them in our lives. And if you don't understand how to see through those blind spots or how to uncover them, these things are having an effect on you, but you don't know that they're even there because they're hidden from you because of where they come. They come from in here. So if we don't understand what blind spots are and how to uncover them so we can work through what's in the blind spot, it just doesn't happen. It doesn't work. We don't grow. We don't expand. We don't accelerate in our path toward being better, the best version of ourselves. I think you said that earlier. So what, Ike, what do you think? I mean,
Well,
it's
it's
amazing.
interesting. I see this exact same thing in a business context all the time as well. We're talking about maybe more uh, psychological, esoteric concepts of trauma with childhood things and things like that. But there are many adults who internalize things, many business people who should know better. For instance, I routinely talk to very affluent individuals who have a need for life insurance. I don't sell life insurance, I'm an attorney. But when I go through their things and I look at what they have and see that they don't have enough or they need more for a business purpose or for a family purpose, they often don't have it. And this is one very specific example because they had a bad experience with it 30 years ago, where they'll say, or 20 years ago, they'll say, in the 90s, I bought some whole life product from a guy and it was super expensive and it was a big ripoff and I will never trust the life insurance guy again, as an example. And that one bad experience is now setting them up to have a blind spot, as Joseph referred to have a big gap in their planning. We see this with people who had a contract that didn't go the way that they expected it to. And from that point forward, they say, well, what's the point, right? So this kind of surrender to a past negative experience carries forward and creates more risk and chaos. And we see this all the time where, I had this, or I had that thing that you're telling me to do and it didn't work. Well, maybe it wasn't well done, or maybe you got a bad judge on a bad day. But that doesn't mean that, just because you got a car accident once doesn't mean you shouldn't keep wearing your seatbelt.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
And so we see that thing, that this concept translate to business people who should know better as well.
Agreed. And I've been an integrative coach professional for, I want to say 17 years. And a lot of my coaching in the beginning, I grew up and I was very heady, right? Everything was, all decisions were made here. That coaching experience through my own depression, postpartum depression, I was like, I'm a young mom. I'm an assistant principal. Life should be great. I'm just got my master's. I ought to be loving life. And I wasn't, but I had this chemical imbalance due to having these kiddos. But I began to study, obviously, the psyche and psychology and mental wellness. And I began to drop in my heart more. And what I didn't know until a recent traumatic experience in my personal life a year ago is that the gut has also got to be involved too, right? So the whole mind, body, spirit piece, literally when I say shock lives in our body, I mean that sincerely. So a lot of talk therapists, and I'm not negating it because I think therapists and coaches are excellent. But if we're only talking to somebody from here and we're trying to get them to understand or to make it motivate a change from the thinking perspective, that will work for some, but it's likely not going to work for everybody because it's we are such a multifaceted being. We're a spiritual being as well as a human being. So I agree with everything that you're saying. And this most recent work that I've done as a trauma guide has remarkably shifted people's ability to show up in the present moment and reach the goals that they've been striving for years that otherwise were lost on them.
Karen, this is such an amazing topic. I think we may have to have you back another time too, because we could really unpack a lot of these things. But as it goes in scripture, it's psychology, it's science, it's common sense for many people. Although common sense isn't so common, we know that. but that how a person thinks is how they are. And it's interesting because we need to understand that trauma is not just we think of trauma as this blunt instrument. This trauma, it's devastated, it's incapacitated. It's not. It can be a subtle little thing. It can be somebody who lied to you, now you think everybody's a liar, or somebody who broke your heart and now you don't want to be in love again. And that flows a lot of different ways, not just love of people, but love of your life. And you become somewhat, suspect of everybody. And that's not the life that we can live, because we're talking here about not just surviving this pandemic and the economy and life. We're talking about thriving. We're talking, how do we thrive? How do we go to be the best version of ourselves? And some of the things you're talking about is amazing. So I wanted to kind of finish up with something here, if that's okay, because I think we got about 4 minutes. I talked about, we've got all these impacts from the pandemic, the economy, and people out of jobs, and food, shortages, and all the things that go on. Mask, no mask; vaccine, no vaccine. It's all out there in front of us. What would you like to share with people? What is in your heart, your mindset? What do you share with people to help them, maybe see it differently, or thrive in when other people are not? What advice?
So the first group of people that come to mind are those that are the strongest, again, mentally, emotionally. They're the folks who seem to have it all going on. Their finances are in order. Their life seems to be in order, and their family and friends. Oftentimes those folks have positioned themselves in such a way that people come to them to ask for help and seek advice. Oftentimes those are the folks who also need to make sure that they are in great self-care for themselves, especially during this time of pandemic and all the social unrest and everything. I mean, this has been quite a year, right? This isn't just a pandemic. This is a year of great political shift. Obviously the economy, so many things are happening worldwide right now. And for our leaders, our business leaders and executive leaders specifically, don't leave things to chance, or don't wait too late to take care of yourself, whether it's meditation, yoga, swimming, getting on your elliptical, talking to a dear friend at a deep level. I call it those below the level, or excuse me, below the belt conversations. Take care of you, take inventory of you, so that, as Joseph and Ike have both said, mindset is everything. But mindset, a healthy mindset, begins with a healthy heart and a healthy gut. So do what you need to do. Stop putting off those to-do lists that might feel selfish, or that you might not feel like you have time for, because we need you. We need your leadership. We need your light. And to keep it turned bright, we need you to take care of yourself first. It's like the airplane, you get on the airplane and what do they say? Moms and dads, put your oxygen mask on first, and then help your kiddo, right?
Yeah.
I would say the same thing about you and your business and your families. Make sure you're taking care of you first so that you can take care of others.
What a great way to end this segment. Thank you for that. And I know that if people want to reach out to you, your contact information will be on a slide at the end of this program, so they can look there. I know you're based here in Phoenix with us. And Ike, any closing comments from you, my friend?
Could you just tell us quickly, how do our listeners find your show and listen to your content and watch it?
Sure. Yeah, thank you. So they can look up Phoenix Business Radio X, all spelled out.com, phoenixbusinessradiox.com. And it's more than just my show. I do house shows, but again, I have 25 different professionals and executive leaders and organizations that do their shows. So you can go there and find all of the programming that we have. And if you're looking at a way to, you want to do a radio show and you want to have a wreath on your door to meet more people that you'd like to do business with, let me know and we can have a conversation about what that might look like for you as well. phoenixbusinessradiox.com. And Ike, it's really great to get to know you. Joseph has spoken so highly about you. I'm glad we had the chance to connect today on the show.
Me too. Thank you. Thanks for sharing your time with us.
Thank you. And so that would bring us to the end of this program. I want to again thank our guest, Karen Nowicki, from Business RadioX, and for sharing her heart and her spirit and her resources with us to help us all do more and be more and see more, and not just survive but thrive in our lives and our businesses and our communities, because we're not in this alone. We're all in this together, and the way we see things really can make a huge impact on the results that we get for ourselves, our families, and our communities. So for my co-host Ike Devji, and for our guest Karen Nowicki, I'm Joseph Rosales. Thank you so much, and we'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.